Talk hard and enjoy the mindgasm. The Intellectual Podcast starts now.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the Intellectual Podcast. It's the third episode of our 10th season. 10 years, man. 10 years. Thank you again for joining us. We're live streaming kind of on impulse again tonight. If people join us, great. If they don't, I'm sure everybody will catch us on the replay. Getting to the replay, we've migrated the show off of the hosts that we've been on for the last 9 years. Migrated the show to Spotify via Anchor. So these video episodes will be available on Spotify going forward. So if you're subscribing to the podcast via Spotify, you'll be able to watch the video ones there. And all the other podcast platforms, you'll still get the audio of this presentation. So just a fun kind of new way that we're going to be presenting this and allowing people to listen in going forward. So tonight, my guest is not so much of a guest as much as my co-host of the last 6 years of the show, Miss Whitney Wegman-Wood. We're going into our 7th year together, actually. And I couldn't be more pleased to be working with Whitney. As all of you know, she's been busy acting and pushing her career even through COVID. And most recently, she produced her first ever short film, The Last Butterflies. I helped her a little bit, but she really took the reins and made this thing happen for herself. It's a starring vehicle for her, as well as something that she wrote. And let's bring her on and let's have a little catch up with my incredibly beautiful co-host, Miss Whitney Wegman-Wood.
Hey, David. How are you?
Hey, Whitney. Did I talk you up enough?
You did. That was awesome. Thank you. It's funny. I was sitting here and I'm realizing I need to go outside more because I am ostensibly the same color as the shades behind me.
Pretty close. Yeah, pretty
close.
A
little frightening. Like, my indoor life.
You are a pale redhead, though, so it kind of works. I guess it's a thing.
Yeah. But we've been going we went hiking the once. We haven't done it since then.
Yeah, well, hopefully we do it again. I think we're going to be clear of the rain on Sunday.
Okay, cool.
Fingers crossed. We'll see. So we should go. Definitely want to keep doing the hikes. Super important, yes. Especially with everything going on with me. I have an endoscopy tomorrow. Just for the update to everybody who's kind of watching along and paying attention to what I'm doing. I have an endoscopy tomorrow. We'll be determining how much damage the celiac disease has been doing to my gut. And, anyway, all that stuff's happening tomorrow. So I'll have more to talk about on that next week. And all my buddies, all my filmmaking buddies, everybody, all you dudes in your late 40s, early 50s, go get your colonoscopy done. Don't be afraid of it. It's easy. It's,
in-depth interview with you, David?
Yeah. Hard-hitting backdoor journalism. Hi, Whitney.
Those jokes are just going to keep on going all year.
Oh, yes, I'm sure they will.
But I think it's a really good thing that you're sharing with people because, we don't talk a lot about our health. And I think, the more we do that, the more comfortable people would be with it. Both physical health as well as mental health and things like that. And they kind of go hand in hand a lot of times.
They do. And, it was kind of awesome after that last episode where I kind of just opened my heart and said what was going on with me. There was a lot of feedback, like private messages and stuff to me from people who thanking me for going on and talking about what I'm going through because they're going through similar type of things. Not exactly the same thing as me, but similar health issues and things that hearing me talk about it, they said help them not feel alone in their own journey, which is really cool, and that's exactly why I wanted to share it with everybody and be open and honest about it. I feel like the more we talk about it, the more we normalize that we all go through things, the more comfort there is in being able to open up and reach out.
Well, yeah, and I mean, the fact that like, you're going through this and it does make you feel isolated, and that makes it even harder to tackle if you think that you're doing it alone. But, just
Yeah.
opening up a little bit, you have a huge support system that you may have not realized.
Yeah. Me personally, but really anybody out there, there's more support for people than people generally realize,
Yeah.
And if people don't know what's going on with you, they don't know that you need the support. And so it's hard for them
Right.
to help you. So you kind of have to open the doors and let people in.
Right.
Hey, what do you think of my new backdrops? Like,
It's awesome. I like it a lot.
I'm gonna go wide here so we can get a better view. Look at that.
Ooh.
Isn't that great? I can change the colors and everything too.
What? That's cool. Wait.
Yeah, I got all
Is it-
these RGB LED lights and stuff, so like
Oh,
I can brighten that up a bit.
neat.
There we go. Now you can see the Millennium Falcon better.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I got
like your
Stan Lee
backdrops.
up there
And your little alien.
and my little alien head, my light up alien head. You can't see over here, but I got the Wakanda Forever poster on this wall.
Nice.
And
Did you watch the Golden
beautiful-
Globes? What was it? Last night? 2 nights ago? Whenever?
Yeah, whenever it was. I think it was last night.
I
No.
don't know. This week's just been one long day.
Right.
This
I
year's
thought
just
time
been
was
one
supposed to
long day.
get back to normal after COVID settled down, but it doesn't.
Oh,
doesn't
heck
seem to be
no.
happening.
No, it's just gone like on fast forward. Like COVID, everything slowed down, and I feel like everybody's been playing catch up. Right before Christmas, I did like a massive photo dump to Facebook, and I was just like, holy crap. I've done a lot of stuff this year. And it's like, I'm a shutterbug anyway, but I tend to take pictures of things where I'm like, oh, this is kind of like a big deal thing, right? Or at least those are the ones okay, that's a lie. I post everything. But but there were a lot of things where I'm like, wow, we did, a lot of weddings this year, lots of birthdays, like where it was like birthdays that took me out of town anyway. Just a lot of stuff, productions, and of course doing the movie, which took up a huge amount of time.
And that, of course, is what I wanted to talk to you about tonight is the movie.
Yeah.
You're
Well,
you're
so
still in post-production. So
yes,
so
still
it's
in
not done
post-production
yet.
right now.
So please don't pester us asking where you can see the movie because it's not available to watch yet.
And even after it's out, we have a festival run, so they're kind of persnickety about where you can show it.
Right.
Yeah, so this is another thing I realized whenever I was doing the massive photo dump. From the time I spoke with Shannon Taylor, because I went and I talked to Shannon and I was like, hey, I want to make this movie. Give me the finer points of being a producer. And that was like a very intense lunchtime meeting where I went, oh, this is very overwhelming. There's a lot of things. From that day until the end of production, it was 6 months almost to the day. And it was 5 months almost to the day that I met with Sue, and Sue got on board as being executive producer. So that is a hell of a turnaround. Like 5 months from inception to, I mean, not full completion, obviously, but like, finishing,
To the conclusion
get everything
of
in the can.
photography. Yeah.
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 So,
We kind of first talked about it and started moving forward with I believe it was during was it Star Wars Celebration or was it WonderCon?
no, Star Wars Celebration. I didn't go to WonderCon this year.
Yeah, it was Celebration. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was like what,
May.
May-ish?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it was crazy. I mean, like I knew I put a lot of hours into this, but I guess I didn't really realize how many until I sat back and went, wow, that's a breakneck timeline. And so I keep a notebook of like, my actor stuff, because obviously like, I'm an independent contractor, and if anyone ever wants like evidence that this is my job, in fact, I keep this little notebook. And about the beginning of September, I'm like, screw it, I'm just throwing the notebook out, because I was doing, I don't know, like 60, 80-hour weeks, like, and it was every day was heavy actor stuff, heavy the production, and just a lot. So my schedule, so September I went and did location scouting, and then came back from location scouting and was like just go, find all these little details, fine tuning all through October. And then literally up until the night before we started production, I was like printing out, because I made all these production books for like the assistant director and for, we had an associate producer that Sue found who was, doing all the contracts and things. And so I made like 4 ginormous production books for everybody. And I was up doing that the night before. Yep. I do have to say, regrettably, I wish that I had been able to transition from my producer hat to my actor hat a little bit earlier. That just would have like put my mind at ease a little bit, because I was still doing the production producer stuff literally right until the night before. So about 10 p.m. the night before we were shooting. But then the next day, as soon as we got on set, I got to just be actor periodically I'd have to, get the question of, oh, hey, this happened and what do you want us to do about it? But most of the time I just got to wear my actor hat, and that was like super chill.
Yeah, I remember when we were going into it, I said to you that I thought it would help you be a much better actor going forward, understanding how much work your producers and crew put in before you ever show up.
Uh-huh.
And I don't think a lot of actors have a full appreciation of how much work goes in to getting it ready for them to hear the words action.
Yeah.
Because as a director and a producer, I have heard all the complaints in the world from actors about having to wait for this. And why are we sitting around? Why am I here so early and I'm not ready? You're not ready to go. And, and it's like, dude, there is so much going on before you're called to set. But we don't know exactly the moment that we're going to be ready for you. So you kind of have to just be on call towards the end of setting everything up, But,
yeah. I guess that was kind of like within the production. The times whenever I had to put my producer hat back on was like the hour before, because I would always get there at the same time as crew, just in case there was anything that I needed to address as the producer. Excluding there was one day that I got there at the regular actor call time, but I went and got coffee for everybody beforehand. So that was like, I come in peace. Actually, so I got to tell you about this coffee. You would love this. There's this little coffee shop called Audley, and they're like this environmentally friendly coffee shop there in Kansas City. And they put everything in mason jars, and then they have like a little koozie that wraps around it, obviously, so you don't burn yourself on the glass. And then you can bring them back. You put a deposit down on the mason jars, and you can bring them back and get your deposit back, or you can just keep them as souvenirs. But I thought that was really cool. I'm like, oh, look at this eco-friendly coffee house that Cooper and I just randomly found it as we were driving to set. It was great.
So you mentioned that you sat down with our friend Shannon Taylor to talk about producing. And you said it was a big meeting, and I remember when you had it. And I remember you kind of telling me, I feel a little overwhelmed. What is it about what she told you overwhelmed you, and how much did your actual experience match up with what she kind of told you to expect?
Well, okay. So the reason it was overwhelming, I think, was because it was just like a huge bite all at once. Like she just gave me like everything. It was a very large info dump. And so it was overwhelming in the fact that it was just completely out of my wheelhouse. Nothing that I've ever really done before. I've never produced before. And yeah, it was just overwhelming because it was a lot all at once. And then, all the things she told me were things that did occur in the course of doing this production, but it was more incremental. And so it was a little easier to digest. Sometimes I still got really overwhelmed. I'm pretty sure I called you crying one day. I was like, I don't want to finish this movie.
Let's just say tears were had more than once.
Yeah, more than once. Yeah, there were points that were super overwhelming, particularly when it came to funding. I think that was the most difficult aspect for me, because in my prior life in theater, I did a lot of stage management, And there is some overlap between what a stage manager does and what a producer does.
Yeah.
And so when it came to like the organization, filing things with SAG, the paperwork part, I'm like, okay, this is stage management. But when it came to the fundraising part, it was overwhelming because, well, one, I mean, I'm having to ask people for money, which is just awkward, right? I am so, so, so grateful for the people who did come through and all of the donors. That was amazing. Um, it it took a while to get there, but I think once we started getting the wheels in motion when it came to the fundraising, more people started coming to the table. And I don't know if that's just because, we were doing it through social media and like the way the algorithms work, like probably people weren't seeing it until more people were being active about it.
Yep.
But yeah, the fundraising part's really awkward. I also applied for like a bunch of grants and stuff. Didn't get any of them, but went through the process of applying anyway.
Now, to be fair, you applied for grants, but I know there were a number of grants that we looked at that you just couldn't get because of the schedule you had put in for yourself too.
That's true.
Like
That's true.
grant funding a film is something you have to do oftentimes a year and a half in advance of shooting it. Like you can't go in August, hey, I'm going to shoot something in November, I'm going to apply for grants. I told you that would be really hard because that's a really tight timetable for grant funding.
And when it came to grants, like some of the ones that I had a better shot at were the finishing grants, which is just a little like bump on the back end to get through post-production. And some of those I'm still waiting to hear from. So maybe, knock on wood.
Yeah. And those can be helpful, because there are unexpected expenses.
Oh, heck yeah.
Like I'm dealing with distribution on the feature that I finished editing a month ago. And it's the first time that we've gone through this particular distributor, and they want things I've never had to deliver before.
Yeah.
So it's like I have to kind of recut some parts of the film because they don't want like the visual effects. They want a pass of the movie that doesn't have the visual effects in it for like foreign distribution, so that the foreign distributors can kind of layer in their own language graphics for like, so like if we're looking at someone's cell phone and there's text on the cell phone, like I got to give them the green screen version of the cell phone, because they want to be able to layer in French language on that. So they call it textless clips. And I've never had to do that before. So like I was not prepped for that. So I literally have to go back and kind of recut those sequences to completely match what exists, but with the original footage. It's like, oh, if I'd have known that, I'd have just layered the effects on top on a second layer as opposed to replacing.
Yeah.
It's so
time consuming.
But you learn it, you live and you learn, but it's an additional expense that like, I had to talk to the director and I'm like, look, I have a percentage deal with you, so I'm not going to charge you extra for this, but it is extra work. It's going to take me a few days, and I'm not feeling great, and I got a medical procedure, and so it's things come up, and you don't always know what you're going to have to run into.
Yeah, right. And I don't know. I think if ever I win the lottery, I would love to have like just a little fundraiser, a grant thing where it's like, hey, artist, write me a proposal. Let's make this happen. If the universe is listening, I'm going to do good things with the lottery money. So come on. But no,
that's up to 1.1 billion again. So
is it? Yeah. I didn't know if anybody won the other day.
Yeah, no, I think it's up to 1.1, 1.4 billion. Let me double check here. Keep talking.
But yeah, so that was the part that I disliked the most, was the fundraising, just because by nature it's awkward. But I am very grateful for the people who did donate and made my life easier. Thank you. I appreciate you.
Yeah, the money raising thing is, especially because you and I are San Diego filmmakers, and so we often talk on the show about the San Diego perspective. And I think that's the missing component for a lot of filmmakers in San Diego is really understanding the work that goes into getting real funding, right? You did the social media thing, you did a little bit of the grant thing, but money doesn't come easy. It doesn't come easy to the folks in LA. Like,
yeah,
but they beat their feet. They knock on doors, and they work and work and work until they finally get the funds. And one of my favorite independent filmmakers is Kevin Smith, right? And he's been making movies now for going on 30 years. And he still talks about, like, I had a great idea. I wanted to do Clerks 3. I had to knock on doors and like find people who are willing to give me the money. It doesn't just happen. Like even later into your career, you still have
Oh,
to
yeah.
convince people to step up.
And this was a question that I brought up a lot because I went to the Southwest Actors Conference this year. That's also something I did in September. This has been a crazy year. So whenever I was there were a lot of forums, and that was one of the questions I asked was, how do you get funding for your independent films? And same whenever I did a few like online classes and forums and meetups, and that was always the question that was on my lips was, how do you get funding? And universally, 1.35 billion. Let's buy lottery tickets, David.
I did. I got 10 of them.
Oh, lottery tickets and win the lottery, make art. I love it. But yeah, so across the board, no matter who I was asking this question to, they were like, well, it's really hard. We're in an economic downturn right now, so it's even harder. And when it comes to ultra low budget indie films or shorts, it's crowdfunding. It's asking your family and your friends, and that's about it, because no one's going to put into that investment because there's no ROI on it at this point. It's just a vehicle for me as a filmmaker and as an actor, and for those involved and to get their art out there. But we're not going to make $1 million off of this. We'll be lucky if we make $100. No, hopefully we'll make something off of it. Maybe we'll win something. It'll be great.
Yeah, there you go.
There's cash prizes.
Winning things are good. Yeah. I have won some money for things that I've made.
Yeah. Now, mind you,
Not in a while.
Now, of course, you and I, anytime that if we were to win any sort of award that had a cash prize, it would probably just be funneled back into the next project. So
every dime I ever made on anything was funneled into the next project. And that was one of those things I've been trying to explain to people for a long time. As an independent filmmaker for the last 25 years, I've spent more money making movies than I currently still owe for the college
right?
time that I did. I think I've spent 3 or 4 times more money making independent films than I ever spent going to college.
So I'm not there yet. I still have plenty of college debt to work on, but I have this small inclination in my heart that maybe there'll be more movie making in my future. Mostly because, well, okay, in the middle of all this, had you asked me, I'm like, I will never make another movie again. I hate producing. This is the worst. And I still kind of feel that way.
Yeah.
But when I was out in Missouri, back home, after we got done with primary shooting and everything, and I got to drive around through, I had all these ideas that were popping in my head, like stories and stuff. And I'm like, that was kind of crazy to me, because I'm like, all the stories were being inspired by home. And there's something I think to be said that my stories live in the Midwest. Like, all of my good ideas are about, they have this seed that comes from like very personal things that have happened in my life or happened with my family. And yeah, whenever I think about those stories, like I have a great story that I came up with about Route 66. Consequently, me and my friend Sean, on our way back after we were done shooting, we did Route 66. So it was on my mind.
Yeah. And I've done so many drives along that route. And I always had story ideas when I drove across the country. It's a great way to find inspiration.
Yeah.
Now, you popped by and missed the scene I directed at Balboa Park's December Nights.
I did. I tried so hard to make it.
It's fine. I totally understand. You were stuck in that traffic, and that traffic's nasty. But you still came by to say hi, which was lovely. And Thank you for that. But we talked a little bit about, potentially maybe coming up with something for Fringe in the summer. And, I would like to do more theater and
I
more,
think that'd be great.
maybe a little more directing in theater too. And so I've been trying to think like what would be a good piece for that. And you talked about personal stories, right?
Hmm.
And it has popped into my head for the last like week that I had a dinner once upon a time with the girl who would become my girlfriend, but was not my girlfriend at the time. She was my best friend, but not my girlfriend. But I had a dinner with her and my father and my mother. Both of them had been divorced for like 20 years at that point, right? But I
Hmm.
had this sit down dinner where it was kind of like, here's the girl I'm probably going to be with, and my parents. And my parents spent the entire evening talking about their courtship. And I've told you a little bit of their story, like mom was a singer, dad heard her singing from the street and had to come find her and what. And they told their story. Dad predominantly told the story, and my mom argued with him about the details. And it was such a beautiful evening, an amazing, like real evening with my parents. Um, and I think I could write that into
I
a
like
really
that.
beautiful one act play.
Yeah.
Because that was also the night that the girl I was friends with, that I personally was like, I hope this is real, because she just shared something with me with my parents that nobody else is probably ever going to get to share. And I want her to be that girl, like that night shifted my kind of mentality about us quite a bit.
That
Um,
would be a very sweet
yeah.
one act.
Yeah, I think it would be really cool. And I don't know, maybe a little bit different from anything else that we would probably think up.
Yeah. And a simplicity of staging, 4 actors. I
Yeah.
like that. I like that a
Yeah.
lot. Well, plus I'm a huge advocate of like I don't know how to describe like slice of life sort of stories.
Yeah.
Um where yeah, I mean cuz you don't get a lot of those like in any sort of big budget theater or Hollywood, right? You get those from independent films, independent theater. And I think those are some of the most interesting stories because everybody that you meet like has those stories and I feel like those are the ones that connect with people because it's real.
Right.
Um yeah, I like
Yeah.
this.
So that's a thought. You and I talked about maybe, working on something together.
I think that would be great.
So yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. I just gotta like write it, I guess.
Wait, we should write it together.
There we go.
Tag team.
So
Um
anyway, so the last Butterflies, you managed to get Cooper Andrews to co-star with you.
I
How did that
did.
go? Like, I know you were really hoping that it would happen, and then for a while it looked like maybe it wouldn't, and then it did.
Right. It was well, so this is part of that intense dogs. I don't know what's happening outside, but something's happening outside. That was part of that really intense timeline was the only reason Cooper was able to do it is because something in his schedule had gotten canceled. And so he had like a week free because that man is incredibly busy all the time. His schedule's breakneck, man. Anytime that I get a hold of him, I'm like, what you doing? He's like, oh, I'm driving from, New York back to Georgia, or I'm flying to LA all the time.
And just to remind everybody, Cooper Andrews was a guest on the podcast when he was like fairly newly starting out as an actor on The Walking Dead.
Yeah, he was only 2 episodes into The Walking Dead, and of course,
Yeah.
now we know he makes it all the way to the end. Sorry, spoiler if you haven't watched the season 11.
And he's also been in the film Shazam.
And we'll be
with
in
Zachary
Shazam
Levi.
2
We'll
coming
be in
out very
Shazam
soon.
too. Yeah. So
And Halt and Catch Fire.
a decent name you got on your little short film there, Whitney.
Yeah. It was amazing working with Cooper. I'm so happy that it worked out that he was able to come out. Not only that, but he brought his friend Adam Boyer with him. Adam is from Ozark, and so Adam played our bad guy. Adam brought so much heart to a character that like you're supposed to hate that it's kind of amazing because you don't completely hate him. And I think that's really that says a lot about Adam to like bring those layers to that character. And then working with Cooper was amazing. It wasn't even like acting. It was just being present with my buddy Cooper. And you know how like they always say that the way to improve your ability and your talent in something is to find someone who is better than you, who like raises your game. I feel like Cooper 100% did that. Every scene that I have with him, I watch it and I'm pretty critical of my acting, but I watch these scenes and I'm like, okay, yeah, we were in that moment, man. Like that was exactly the intentions there. And I totally credit Cooper with that. Like he brought some magic to it. And I don't know if it's just because we're friends and we were comfortable with each other, but it flowed really easy. It was great.
It's good. Well, I know in the scripting, like we because I helped you a little bit with your scripting. I know we worked really hard on making sure that the dialogue and the way you two were written to interact felt real and genuine from the scripting stage. So
Yeah,
I'm glad to hear that feels like it must have translated well.
it
on the
definitely
day.
did. It definitely did. And of course, like, Cooper brought his own twist to how, like he would change things to be a little more Cooperish here and there,
Yeah, well, and that's
obviously.
what you want from any actor, to put a little
Right.
bit of themselves into it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't have been more pleased with all of the performances. Oh my gosh. I cannot say praises highly enough for our child actor, Ivy. She was brilliant, man. She's 5, like just turned 5. This kid's gonna be a powerhouse someday. And she never missed a line, like word perfect every single time. And there was one day in particular, we had this scene where we're walking through the woods, and and she goes, Miss Whitney. She called me Miss Whitney. She's like, I'm gonna put this stick right here so we come back to the same spot every time. I'm like, awesome, Ivy, that's a great idea. And then she looks at our script supervisor and she goes, Miss Andy, that line that I said, I can't remember what the line was, but she's like, did I say it at that rock or at that tree? And Andrea looks through the thing and she's like, tells her, oh, it was over here at this tree. And I'm like, Ivy, do you know the things that you're asking about? It's called continuity. And even grown-up actors don't ask these questions. You're very smart that you're asking these
And
questions.
they should.
They should. And she's like, oh, she goes, okay. And for the rest of the week, anytime that I like mentioned, or if she observed herself, doing something the same way, she'd be like, I'm doing, what's that word? I'm like, continuity. But she was great. Really awesome little actress. I was wholly impressed. We lucked out with the kid. She was awesome.
Well, I mean, you didn't luck out. You guys auditioned a number of child actors, and I think you did the work, right?
We did, but
to give yourself the best chance of having the right kid in the role. So
I guess, just because she did well in an audition and in callbacks as well, that lasts what, like 30 minutes versus, like a full time on set. Plus we were out and it was really cold. So, of course we would like, make sure, go inside, warm up, potty breaks, things like that. But a lot of kids, especially at that age, would have been, cold and, maybe whiny about it or something. Not once. The only thing she ever asked for was like to have hot chocolate on set. And so she had her on-set teacher was also her hot chocolate delivery person. And that was it. Like that kept her quite content on the cold shooting days. So
that's great. Yeah,
great
I know we had conversations about that whether or not the kids would be able to sustain and hold up. So
Yeah, right. I did all of those, the things they say are mistakes for your first film. Like they say, oh, it's hard working with kid actors. Don't do that for your first film. I didn't have any I didn't have any live animals. I have CGI butterflies, but um
and one piece of roadkill, right?
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, roadkill and a stuffed raccoon that we had to make breathe. That was actually really cool.
Yeah.
Jake, the FX guy, came up with a really cool way to make that work. So that was neat too, getting to see like other people's work and how they came up with solutions to the problems that I wrote, to the problems I created.
Honestly, that's the reason why I like directing, because I like being kind of like the overlord of the team that figures out how to solve all the problems.
Yeah.
Like, I like watching the team suss it out.
It's neat to watch and just see the creativity from all the different sides, because it's
Yeah.
it's stuff that I don't do on the regular. So I'm like, oh, that's really awesome.
Let's talk a little bit about your production team, your DP and your director.
Okay.
You want to tell us a
Um,
little bit about them?
Yeah, so Taylor Snyder was our DP, and this is somebody that Sue Vickery had found. Taylor's background, she actually is a wedding videographer and photographer, and she had worked with Sue doing some music videos,
Mm-hmm.
and this was her first narrative, and she killed it. It's so pretty. Uh, I loved working with Taylor. Like she brought a lot of heart to this. Obviously, like the story it's a sad story, and it's a story about a mom and her kid, and Taylor is a mom, so this was very close to her heart, uh, relatable to her. And so some of the way that she stylized the shots, like you could just feel the heart and the connection behind it. And so it was really great working with Taylor. She was awesome.
That's
And then
fantastic.
sorry.
I said that's fantastic.
Yeah. And then Patrick Ray was our director. And Patrick did a really good job of rallying the troops. Like a lot of the people who came on set, I didn't know like the AD and sound or any of the local hires that we had there. I was just meeting them whenever I got on set, and he did a really good job of recruiting people, personalities that meshed really well, and just sort of keeping everybody on task, keeping everybody's spirits up, even though it was 45 degrees and we were all freezing. So yeah, I think it flowed really well. Like everybody had a good working relationship, and um, it went as smoothly as it could. But again, we planned for a lot of things. We did a lot of planning, and so the things we planned for went off well, and the thing we couldn't control was the weather, and it was freezing.
Yeah, but you're supposed to be miserable through like half of the movie anyway. So
Oh yeah.
I always felt like shooting it in the cold out there was going to work to your advantage as an actor.
Oh yeah. No, we looked pretty miserable in a couple of the shots, me and Ivy. So, and like, anytime I had to cry, I'm like, I'm just gonna breathe in the cold air real. Okay, now the snot's going. Actually, okay, I do have to tell you this. There was one particular scene, and you will know this because you've worked with me before. When I get my tears going, like I can't help but like the snot just flows. And the same thing happened the very first time you and I worked together, which was I had this long string of snot that just came down out of my nose in one of the shots. And Jake, who was our FX person, almost started laughing, and he like had to stifle it because it was like a good take. It just this snot string. I think I lost you, David. Oh no, we lost David. Well, there's no one in this live stream, but I can keep talking for now. So let's see, what else can I tell you about the production? We had amazing craft services. So we had a gal named Fanchon and a gal named Lanita, and they used to run the restaurant there in Mound City, Kansas, and their food was just best craft services. It was awesome. I really pride myself on craft services because as an actor, whenever I'm on set, like that's how I gauge if I've had a good day, is if the food was good. And so yeah, I was really happy that we had good food on set.
Goodness gracious, goodness gracious. We seem to have lost Whitney and I lost internet entirely for a minute or two. So I guess we'll have to finish this conversation down the road. There you go. Such is the nature of doing live recordings. Thank you all for joining us on the Intellectual tonight. We'll finish up with Whitney down the road. So until next time, I'm David Dawson. This is the Intellectual Podcast, and yeah, we'll see you. We'll see you later.